better. Okay. Oh, it's already recording. Okay, cool, great. Hello, this is definitely not the video that you were expecting because it's not a cover. Sorry, it's been so long since I've uploaded anything. I just kind of wanted to do something, and in case you haven't noticed, I've got some sick new tattoos, so I figured I'd do a tattoo tour for you guys. Half the reason I'm doing this is actually because I was talking to my nan about it. She asked me a while ago if I could tell her what they all mean because she knows that they mean a lot to me, and I got so excited because people don't often ask that. Like, they don't want a full in-depth explanation. They're like, oh, your tattoos are cool, are they from something? And like, that's the end of the conversation. And I know that if I start talking about them, I'm gonna go on for hours, so I usually try to just say, yeah, it's just from this thing, and then end it there, because this person definitely did not want to know my whole life story. But then I went up to visit my nan, and I don't get to see her very often, and I know she's definitely watching this right now. Hi, Nan. I just totally forgot, and I was sitting in the chair getting these done when I realized that I didn't tell her anything about the other ones, and I got really sad about it. So I figured, why not just make a video and share it with everyone. So I figure I'll talk about what the overarching theme for all my tattoos is going to be, and then I'll get into the ones that I already have. I'm going to talk about everything from meaning to the pain scale to how I chose the placement and the artists that I went to. I am going to link all of their Instagrams in the description, so if you're someone who lives in the Melbourne area who's wanting a tattoo kind of like mine, then you can go there and check them out. Currently I have 13 tattoos. I got my first tattoo in February of 2021, and my most recent ones, these ones, I got less than a week ago. So in terms of themes for my tattoos, the way that I decide what I want is I actually have this list on my phone. I don't want somebody to be able to look at it straight away and tell that's a character from a show, that is an artist that you like, blah 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 blah. I want it to be a sort of indirect reference, so that if one day I wake up and decide that I don't like this thing as much as I did initially, I've still got a really cool tattoo out of it, and it doesn't have to mean what it initially meant. That being said, I don't think I'm going to regret any of these. I say this now, like, it's been 2 years and I still love all of them so much. So that's kind of how that works. It's a little bit pretentious, but I kind of love it because of that. I have a rule that something has to be on the list for at least 6 months, and I still have to think that it's a brilliant idea before I book it in. All of the tattoos that I've got so far, except for 3 of them, are direct references to something, and those 3 I've ended up sort of twisting them and adding my own meaning to them. Anyway, let's get into the meaning behind all of them. These 4 were done over 2 sessions. They took so long because they were my first tattoos and I really wasn't sure where I wanted to place them. I was kind of scared of the needle. I didn't know what to expect, so we didn't have time to do all of them in one session like I had hoped, but that was okay. The first session for my first tattoos ever was late February of 2021, and then the second one was sort of mid-March. All of these look like they're handwritten because they were. So the Moonchild one itself was directly copied from RM's Mono album, and if you compare them side by side, it looks like it's been photocopied onto my skin. It's incredible. The other 3 quotes I got my sister and my 2 best friends to write for me, which was really funny because none of them read or write Korean, but I couldn't decide whether I wanted it to be like a typeface or whether I wanted it to be handwritten. I asked them to write it out for me, and I fell in love with their handwriting straight away, so I knew I had to get those. 3 of these 4 tattoos are from Moonchild, which is a song that I have actually posted a cover of on here. So Moonchild is a song that essentially compares people's souls to landscapes. Namjoon talks about how most of the time when you're talking with people, you're seeing the landscape that they want to show you. It's bright, it's daytime, it's beautiful. And he says that some people are more comfortable at nighttime. But nighttime, of course, is dark, it's scary, the moonlight can bring out thorns that didn't look like they were there before. It can be hard to look at somebody's nightscape and still love and accept them for who they are. It can be even harder to look at your own nightscape with all of the fear and the anger and the ugliness. The song is about seeing these darker parts of yourself and accepting them, and in that learning to love and accept others. So of course I got the name of it tattooed, and then I got these two other tattoos. The first one is down here on the inside of my arm, the second one is on the back of my right shoulder. The one on my arm reads 우리에겐 누구보다 밤이 평강이 필요해, and it basically translates to you and I need a view of the nightscape more than anyone else. And then the one on my arm reads 우린 서로의 약간 서로의 달, and that basically means we are each other's nightscape, each other's moon. On their own, quite beautiful, quite nice. Even if you can't speak Korean, if someone were to read it out loud to you, it sounds nice, it sounds poetic. But you add the knowledge of what the song is about and suddenly it takes on a whole new meaning, which is what I really like about it. Then the last one that I've got written on my right arm right here is from another song written by the same artist. The song is Serendipity, which is also a song that I've covered on here, and it's basically about falling in love with someone. Now, I am planning to get a lot more tattoos from the BTS Love Yourself album series. My personal favorite thing about the series is that you can view it lots of different ways. One of them is to think of it as a story of falling in and out of love with somebody else. Another way is to think of it as falling in and out of love with yourself. It's about learning to unconditionally love and accept yourself. Pretty much any BTS fan will tell you that they found them just when they needed them, and that is absolutely the case for me as well. This series was just coming out when I was going through a pretty rough transition period of my life, and it has helped me a lot. Serendipity, apart from being beautiful sounding, has some incredible lyrics, and these are my favorite. The one on my arm says 우린 시들도록 펴, which basically means we bloom until we ache. And I think that really nicely encapsulates how it feels to fall in love with someone, when you love someone so much that it physically hurts. Now, in terms of pain, I'm going to rate everything out of 10, with 10 being the worst tattoo pain that I've experienced so far, and 1 being I could just fall asleep. The one on my ribs didn't actually hurt that much. It was more of a weird sensation because the vibrations from the tattoo gun I could feel going through my entire ribcage. It was like a 2 out of 10. I did nearly fall asleep in the chair. For the Moonchild quote on the inside of my arm, that was like a 3 or a 4 out of 10. The one on the back of my shoulder was maybe a 4 or a 5 out of 10. It wasn't that bad, but it did hurt as she got towards the bony part at the end. And for whatever reason, I have no idea. This one was like a 7 out of 10, easily. Moving on to these two tattoos, which I got in around about mid-December of 2021. I probably would have got more earlier. We were going through a lot of lockdowns at that stage, so these were the earliest ones that I could. These two are done by Mary. She is a solo artist who's set up in the CBD, and she's so lovely. And they are actually flash pieces. I didn't get them with any previous ideas in mind, and they're so well done. I get compliments on the flowers in particular because the lines are so neat. People ask me all the time whether it's a new tattoo, and it's nearly 2 years old, so I'd say that that's a win for the both of us. Now, when I walked into the studio, this had actually been posted as a blue piece, but she asked me what colour I would want, and I said purple for multiple reasons. When I was a kid, my favourite colour was purple, but when I grew up, I didn't want to be like anyone else. I didn't want people to judge me based on my favourite colour of all things, so I denounced it. But in reality, it's always been my favourite colour. So in that sense, it's kind of like an ode to my childhood self, and an apology for ever pretending to be someone who I wasn't. People have also told me that it looks like this album cover, which is from one of my favourite artists, and if any K-pop fans are watching this, I'm sure you've heard the news about Moonbin, who was one of my biases in the group. So in a way, this kind of represents him now. The meaning has changed quite a lot since I got it, but I like to think that this is his now that he's no longer with us. The butterfly is meaningful in lots of different ways. There's this running joke in the queer community that if you have tattoos and you're queer, you've got to have at least one bug tattoo. So when I booked this in, I did have that in mind and I thought it was pretty funny. 2021 was also the year that I realized that I am not a woman. I didn't know exactly what I was, but I also realized that girls don't spend hours of their time questioning whether or not they're girls. Once I finally accepted that I wasn't just being internally misogynistic, I genuinely wasn't a woman, I came out as genderqueer, and that was around about the time that I got this tattoo. I realized maybe 9 or 10 months later that I am non-binary, so right now I use they them pronouns. I'm not a woman, I'm not a man, I'm not really anything. And I got a tattoo to commemorate that as well, but I'll get into that later. In terms of pain, these ones really weren't that bad. The flowers were like a 3 out of 10, I was basically falling asleep, and the butterfly was like a 5 out of 10, but this specific sparkle right here, 9 out of 10. And I was sitting there with tears in my eyes just begging it to be over. On to the next one. This is my most expensive and most time-consuming standalone tattoo. It's situated on the side of my thigh, sort of halfway down. And this one's by Dan. I got it done by him when he was still at Alchemy Tattoo, but he's now at Heretic. This one looks like a really cool picture of a praying mantis eating a butterfly, but it's actually a manga panel from Attack on Titan. Lots of Attack on Titan fans have actually asked me where it's from because they say it looks really familiar. I am a big fan of the storyline of Attack on Titan. If you know anything about it, you know that everything is connected. If you watch it all the way through and go back and watch it again, it's like you're watching a totally different story because there's so many tiny little details that you can pick out the second watch. The first time the mantis shows up is in season 1. I'm pretty sure it's in like volume 2 of the manga, like chapter 6 or 7 or something like that. It only flashes up briefly a couple of times throughout the story, but it's always in reference to the same person doing the same thing. This one in particular is an ode to Mikasa. Now already Mikasa is one of the coolest characters out there, and it's when she first has her Ackerman powers awakened. So the Ackermans in Attack on Titan are this family of people who are incredibly strong, and they're basically bred to be soldiers. Mikasa in this scene had just lost her family, she'd been kidnapped, and Eren had come in and started attacking her kidnappers, and he was telling her, "You've got to fight, you have to fight back or we are going to die." At this point Mikasa's freaking out, she's like, I can't kill someone, I can't hurt another human being, but then she has a flashback and she remembers all of the times in her life when she has just casually and accidentally witnessed death in nature around her. Once she realizes this, she starts fighting back. She and Eren end up killing those guys and they escape with their lives. Anyone who watches the show knows that Mikasa ends up falling in love with Eren, which honestly I didn't like that much at first, but by the end of the series I really loved it. And Mikasa's theme, because all the characters have their own themes assigned to them, is "The world is cruel, but I still love you." That is one of my favourite themes in Attack on Titan, and it pops up everywhere if you know to look for it. Slight spoiler warning for this one, I'm not going to say anything explicit, but you might want to skip to this timestamp if you don't want to hear me say anything that could give you an idea of how Attack on Titan ends. But I love the comparison of Mikasa to a praying mantis and Eren's dreams to a butterfly. I love the idea of Mikasa being able to give the kiss of death. If you know, you know. If you don't worry about it. Because this tattoo is quite large and it is so detailed, it took around about 6 hours to do. This area of the thigh isn't that sensitive, so when we started out, the pain was like maybe a 3 or 4 out of 10, but by the end of it, because he'd been going over it again and again, doing all of this shading and highlighting and adding little details, and he had been doing so for around about 6 hours, I was nearly crying. I was beside myself with pain, but I didn't want to stop because we were so close to the end. When he got the paper towel and rubbed it over my leg, it felt like sandpaper. But I walked out of the studio so happy, and I ended up going back to him again. So yeah, by the end of that, the pain was like easily a 9 out of 10. The next tattoo I got was around June last year, and it was kind of like a little birthday present to myself. It was this moth. I went back to Mary for this one and I asked her specifically if she could match the style of the butterfly that she did, which is why it's got the cool like pink outline around the edge. She did an amazing job because the references that I gave her were kind of sketchy, like they were okay but they weren't the best. I didn't know what kind of moth I wanted, and I really liked the one that she ended up doing. And I got it for the same reason that I ended up liking the butterfly. I got it because it's a queer symbol and because it's a trans symbol symbol and because I really like the dichotomy of having night and day on one arm. So this one doesn't just commemorate me fully realizing that I'm non-binary, but it also commemorates the time that I started to try and get people to call me Moon. I do go by Moon everywhere now in real life and online. I think that it suits me a lot better now that I am out as non-binary. My old name suited me well when I thought I was a girl, but I am not a girl anymore, so it kind of clashes with everything. And being non-binary, being any form of queer, isn't a choice, but deciding to come out and to be open about who you are is a whole other matter. It comes down to safety, it comes down to comfort, it comes down to really your ability to accept that some people are not going to accept you. I know that I very much look and act and speak like a girl, and I know that most strangers assume that I am, but the people who know treat me the way that I want to be treated, and it's made me incredibly happy that I've told them who I actually am. Now, the pain for this one, being on the inside of my arm, was a solid 8 out of 10 the entire time. It was a 10 out of 10 at some points, but I didn't stop. I hate stopping, I hate needing rests, and it only took her about an hour to finish. The next tattoos that I got were these weapons. I got these in December of 2022 and I went back to Dan. I did initially reach out to a different artist for this one because I wanted to broaden my horizons a little bit, and I thought that their style would have really matched what I was going for, but they never got back to me, which was a little bit weird. I think that they were just pushing their flash and they didn't want to tattoo any new designs, but I was pretty bummed. It turned out so well though because Dan did an absolutely incredible job and I love these tattoos so much. So these are a reference to Jujutsu Kaisen, which is another anime / manga that I really like. And like I said at the start of the video, they are a reference to a character that I love. Her name is Maki. I have had people tell me that I am exactly like Maki, and I like to think that I'm exactly like Maki because she is so cool. Basically in Jujutsu Kaisen, it's a world exactly like ours, but there are people who are sorcerers. They utilize spiritual energy to destroy bad spiritual energy, and this bad spiritual energy tends to grow in places like hospitals, schools, funeral homes, places where people have lots of negative emotions. The spiritual energy will grow until a demon, basically, is formed, and it's the job of these sorcerers to keep the demons in check and keep the people safe. Now, obviously, to be able to fight this negative spiritual energy, you have to have your own positive spiritual energy, and sorcerers are born with that naturally. It's innate to them. Maki comes from a really powerful clan called the Zenin clan, and she is born with a twin sister. Japanese folklore states that twins are bad luck because it's one soul split between two bodies. I don't know how much people believe that anymore. Obviously, I'm not Japanese, but Jujutsu Kaisen relies a lot on folklores in order to push the story forward. Maki's twin sister, Mei, has low spiritual energy. Maki has no spiritual energy and she cannot even see spiritual energy. That's where she gets her glasses from. She uses them to be able to see all the energy around her. Because she's born without spiritual energy, her family doesn't disown her but tells her that she's not going to be good for anything. She wants nothing more than to become a powerful sorcerer just like the rest of them, but they basically ban her. They won't allow her to even train with them. So she moves from Kyoto to Tokyo and starts training with spiritual weapons. These are weapons that already have spiritual energy in them. She just needs to figure out how to channel that energy, and she becomes one of the most powerful sorcerers out there. I'm not going to go any further because spoilers, but Maki stays one of my favorite characters in the whole series, and because of her situation, her weapons are iconic. In a way, they kind of represent refusing to give up when you know that you can still try, and refusing to let anyone tell you no, you're actually not good enough to do this. In terms of pain, these were pretty bad. The sword on the back of my arm was like a 6 out of 10, it was easily the best one. The 3-section staff was like a 7 to 8 out of 10, especially towards the bonier part, and this one hurt so much. I don't know if I still have the photo, but it bruised really badly after I got it. This is my 10 out of 10 on the pain scale for tattoos. This brings us to the most recent tattoos, these ones, which I got less than a week ago as of filming. I was so excited about these ones because I went to someone who actually specializes in anime and fine line tattoos. Her name is Taylor and she works at Seven Saints. Like I said, these ones are still healing, so they may look like they're peeling a little bit in the videos, but that's totally normal, they're fine. And they are from two different animes, two different characters who, once again, I relate to quite a bit. This one is actually from JJK, which is the same universe as Maki, and he's Maki's cousin, funnily enough. His name is Megumi, and he uses his spiritual energy to channel creatures from shadows, basically. He makes shadow puppets come to life, for lack of a better explanation. And these are my favorite shadow puppets of his. They're called the Divine Dogs. This one is from another anime called Chainsaw Man, and the character's name is Aki. Chainsaw Man is a very similar setup to Jujutsu Kaisen, but instead of spirits or demons, you have devils. And Aki, much like the other characters in the story, is a devil hunter, and devil hunters will often create contracts with very powerful devils, and they'll sell parts of themselves in order for the devil to do their bidding. Aki has a contract with this devil, a fox devil named Kon, and what he does is he says Kon, and he offers up a part of his skin usually in order for Kon to bite down on and usually eat and hence destroy whatever it is he wants destroyed. These two also have a really similar personality. They're quite deadpan in everything that they do. They would also immediately sacrifice themselves to save the things that they love, and they kind of do. The Megumi tattoo I have wanted for years, ever since I first watched the anime for JJK, and especially since I finished reading the manga. But I read Chainsaw Man much more recently, I'd say roughly 4 or 5 months ago now. I know that kind of breaks my rule that I set for myself where I say 6 months and that's it, but I've wanted this one for so long, and these two are basically the same guy in different universes. Plus, I really like the idea of having matching tattoos on opposite sides of my body. My end goal is to have patchwork sleeves, so I think I'm really missing an opportunity if I don't have a couple at least that match each other, because I think it looks really cool. In terms of pain for this one, they both started at around about a 5 out of 10 and they ended at a 9 out of 10. Especially Megumi, because the shading needle came out and I've never had a shading needle used before. I've heard horror stories about it, I know that people hate it. When she started on it, I was like, yeah, it's not too bad, it's okay. But by the end, because she'd been going over and over and over, nearly died. Worth it though. I will probably be going back to Taylor in the future, especially because I've got a lot of anime tattoos that I want to get. And it's just nice to be able to talk to someone who knows the reference that you're talking about. I don't have to say, oh, the dog puppet or the fox puppet. I can say Aki and Megumi and she gets it. I have been filming this for nearly an hour and I think that I'm finally done. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. I don't know when I'm going to film a cover next. I'm so creatively burnt out in every sense of the word. So I'm really struggling with things that I have to do, like assignments, let alone with things that I do for fun. You never know when inspiration may strike. Chinese Satellite kind of came out of nowhere, so give this video a like if you wanna, that would mean a lot to me. Subscribe if you wanna, that would also mean a lot to me. All of my socials are here and also in the video description, so you can go ahead and follow me there if you want to see me update a lot more regularly, because I do interact with people a lot more regularly on other platforms. Thanks, bye!